What is up, everyone? Today, it is me, Amish Hammer, once again, back with another one-take tutorial. Today is a special day. We are finishing our weapon codexes with my personal favorite, so I saved the best for last. We are going over the Parry Codex. Personally, probably the most broken codex that's out there. It's very, very good. So let's just hop right into this. After we get done with all the weapon codexes, so after this episode, I'm going to try and do the other ones. So like the Poison Kit, Thief Codex, the Shiv book, Necromancy book. I'm going to try and dive into all the different books and just keep an eye out. I don't know about the spell ones and the taming ones, but I'm going to read through them and get the videos out for you guys. But for now, I'm going to get the one out of the way that I actually know. So today is the Parry Codex. Possibly, if not the most broken codex, weapon-wise. Even though it isn't a weapon, it is fantastic, and I will explain why. So, let's get right into this, everyone. First, we're going to start out with Shield Bash. So, Shield Bash increases the damage resistance against player combatants by 3% per rank. So that's a total of 21% at tier 7, and a 4% chance a 4% chance when hit by a melee attack from any mob. It has a chance to hinder that mob, and that scales with the percentage as well, I think. So I think it goes up to a 28% chance at tier 7. I hope I just take that with a grain of salt. I don't know if it actually scales or if only the damage resistance scales, but this ability is fantastic. Usually if you're running through a dungeon, this is the one you want to have active when you're trying to get to your destination, because that's a permanent 21% damage resistance chance while you're running. Another good feature is the hinder effect. If you're running around fighting mobs, say you have a parry archer build, so you have hinder with archery as the weapon special, but then you could also have shield bash on, so while you're getting hit from mobs, they have a chance to hinder themselves, but you also have a chance to hinder them back. So it's a very good ability to have active. It also works with wrestling, because wrestling does allow you to have a chance to hinder things. So definitely recommend Shield Bash if you're running through dungeons. This is not the main stance I would recommend, but it's definitely one that you should use while you're running around. It's not the most tanky one, but it does the job. Next, we're going to warding. So warding is this is probably one of the reasons why I recommend Parry stance or Parry Codex to everyone. If you're a melee person and you don't have parry, you're just really hurting yourself. So warding reduces poison, bleed, and disease tick damage by 8% per rank, which is massive. And that can combine with the barrier finisher, which I will get to in a second. And if you really want to, you can use close wounds with it. And close wounds for 30 seconds reduces the bleed and disease damage by 25% times whatever your shiv skill is above 100. So definitely recommend this. It is fantastic. If you are fighting a mob that poisons or diseases or bleeds, you can just trigger these two things together, and instead of taking 20 damage a tick, you're probably gonna take 3 to 5 damage a tick. It's really, really broken. There's not much more I can do other than praise it. It is fantastic. I will explain the barrier thing when we get down there at the finishers, but just keep in mind, warding and barrier are fantastic together. Okay, next, Tetsudo. This is the black sheep, the hated child in the Parry Codex. This one is kind of pointless. There's only very, very, very rare situations where this one is actually useful, but let me just read the description first. Your damage resistance increases by 1.5% per rank per creature currently aggroed onto the player to a max of 5 creatures. So basically, at tier 7, I can't do the math off the top of my head. Let's break out the calculator because I'm an idiot. So that is a 10.5% damage resistance at tier 10 or tier 7. So at tier 7, what you're getting a 10.5% damage resistance just by default. But then for every mob that you've aggroed onto you up to 5, it scales. So that would go up by 5 to a total of 52.5% damage resistance. Now, the reason why I said this is a very underwhelming and disappointing one that you don't really use is because as a melee character, 9 times out of 10, you are not going to be tanking more than 1 or 2 mobs. So it's really not that good. The only time I advocate for using this stance is when people are the designated tanks for a boss or an omni-boss. So what you want to do with this is whenever you're tanking, if you can tank, you want to have Tetsudo on, and then you want to area taunt. So you double click your shield, and then you get the cursor, and then you click on yourself, and it does an area taunt, and it taunts every single mob within the area to you. I think it maxes out at 10. I can't remember off the top of my head. But at that point, if you're taunting everything, that is a 52.5% chance to reduce or damage resistance. And that is fantastic, including at bosses or omnis. You should at least have one person that is a bard, so you will get bard buffs where you take even less damage. And as a warrior, hopefully you're running something tanky if you're going to run a tanky build. So like earth aspect, you get damage resistance. Discipline, you get damage resistance. You could run holy, and holy makes you very tanky when you spend your points. Or void is fantastic because it increases your parry skill, so then you have a higher chance to even parry things. So when things attack you, they're less likely to actually hit you for the full amount of damage. So next, Tetsudo is very situational. So now, Mirror Stance is also very situational, but this one you are much more likely to use than Tetsudo. This is another extremely broken skill that goes very well with a different spell ability, and I will get into that in a second. The Mirror Stance has a 2% chance per rank, or has a 2% chance to reflect any spell casted on a player, and it reduces the damage by 4% per rank. So what that means is at tier 7, you have a 14% chance to reflect any spell that's casted on you, and then a 28% reduction to the damage of that spell. Now that is fantastic by itself. Usually casters do not have too much armor, so it's not like you really need to defend against them too much. They're just going to cast spells on you, so you can just run up and murder them super fast while their spells don't really do anything. But on top of that, let's open the Shiv book again. We have this beautiful ability right here called Dispel Evil, and it only costs 1 symbol to cast, so it's perfect to always have this ability running. So what Dispel Evil does is it gives you, for the next 30 seconds, a player gains a 5% times their Shiv skill divided by 100 chance to reflect spells, and a 5% chance to evade any melee damage and reducing it to 1 damage. So if we're just going by this first part, if you have 100 Shiv, you have a 5% chance to reflect any spell. So you add that on top of Mirror Stance, which also gives you a 14%, so you have a 19% chance to reflect any spell. And the bottom part goes very, very well with Last Stand. So we're almost at the finishers, so I will pull this off to the side for right now, and I will contrast it when we get to the finishers. Just keep in mind, the finisher for Last Stand synergizes with Mirror Stance and Dispel Evil. Warding is with Barrier, so just keep that in mind. We'll get there in a second. Last but not least is probably the most broken one. This one is just great in general. So you get a 5% chance, or increases the damage resistance by 5% per rank if the player is standing stationary for at least 3 seconds or more. Now, I know there are the warriors and the dexers out there that have the zoomies, and they like to run circles around a mob and hit it. That doesn't really help much, because, I mean, you're still going to get hit eventually. If you're going to do that, run Shield Bash. But if you're like me, where you're just tanky and you just feel like standing there and not doing shit, you put on Bulwark. Bulwark gives you a flat 35% damage resistance at tier 7, which is great. That's just good damage resistance, and all you have to do is just stand still. That's literally all it does, but it's fantastic, because that synergizes with Earth Aspect or any other damage resisting abilities. So Holy, Earth, Discipline, Air, Void, like everything that gives you damage resistance stacks with this, and it's not enough to like go crazy and put you over the limit, but you still get a good decent amount of damage resistance. So might as well use it. You're gonna be standing still and attacking things anyway, so you shouldn't really be running unless you are like fighting a like a flame gorger or whatever the heck these things are called in Shadowspire that spit the fire waves. You definitely want to dodge those. They hurt a lot, so definitely recommend Bulwark. Okay, now we're on to the finishers. So this is first I need to explain the finisher system for Parry because it is unique compared to all the others. So for every weapon finisher other than Parry, the requirements to get the finisher off is the mob that you are attacking needs to go under 35% HP or 35% health points. Once it's under 35% chance, then every tier that you have, so the finisher tiers up to 5, it increases your chance to get a finisher off every hit by 5% or 3%. So you get a total of 15% at tier 5. But for the Parry Codex, since that doesn't affect mobs, the Parry Codex is reliant on you as a player. And what it does is the requirement is when your player goes under 50% HP, then it has a chance to go off. Just as long as we're clear. I don't know if there's a cooldown on it. I will have to look that up. I don't think there is a cooldown. But just take that with a grain of salt. I've never really paid much attention to it. It just automatically goes off. And it has saved my ass multiple times. So, we're going to check out Last Stand first. So this one, fantastic. This is the one I always have on. I only use Barrier extremely rarely in certain situations. Last Stand is by far the one that I use the most. Last Stand has a 5% chance per rank to reduce any damage taken by to 1 damage. So that's a 25% chance whenever you're under 50%, any hit that you take gets reduced to 1 damage. It has a 25% chance to go to 1 damage. Now, like I said earlier, with the Dispel Evil, this synergizes fantastically with Last Stand because you have an additional 5% if you just use one shiv spell constantly, or one symbol constantly every 30 seconds. This is always going on. So you don't even need to be under 50% for this to go off. But when you're under 50%, it goes from a 25% chance to a 30% chance. So might as well always have it active. These two synergize fantastically. I've taken hits multiple times from like spectral terrors that should have killed me with like 75 damage or something, and it just reduces it to 1, and then I just run away, and it works. It's fantastic. Okay, next and the last, we're going with Barrier. So as I said before, goes very well with Close Wounds. So what does Barrier do? Oh, gotta switch over to that so you guys know we are saving. Barrier has a 10% chance per rank to reduce any poison, bleed, or disease damage tick to 1. So that is a total of a 50% chance when you're below 50 HP or 50% HP. So that plus Close Wounds and warding is fantastic. So if you somehow have warding and Close Wounds active and you're still taking more damage than that you can't heal it before you get to 50%, then switch to Barrier. Barrier will drastically increase your chances of survival. You could also increase this even more if you have Cleansing Brews or Anatomy. Anatomy is a fantastic skill that just got updated about half a year ago, where now it reduces the damage from bleeds and disease, so it increases people or encourages people to go and use it as a melee build. But on top of that, Anatomy also at 100 gives you a bonus 15% to your finisher chance. So now when I'm at 50% HP, instead of having a 15% chance, I would have a 30% chance every time I take damage to get a finisher off for the Parry Codex. It is fantastic. There's no reason not to use it. Anatomy is amazing. Every warrior should have anatomy. Okay, so there's not much to talk about with this codex in the aftermath because not much stuff benefits it, but I will go over a couple things codex or aspect wise. So air does increase here, we'll just do it this way. Air armor gives you a damage resistance after every swing for 5 seconds. So that synergizes with shield bash and bulwark. What's next? Artisan. If you are one of those guys that wants to do an artisan warrior, which is extremely tanky, when you're wearing crafted skilled armor, it gives you a bonus from that too. Also, your repair kits increase your melee damage. Okay, so yeah, it's just really good. You get very tanky from that. Blood, you don't really get much tankiness from this, but running blood also increases your stats drastically. So I'm at tier 12 and I have plus 30 to all my stats, so that's nice when you have a disease or something on you. The only other ones that I would suggest, if you're gonna run a parry build and you need to tank things, I would do air. Maybe air's not the most tanky, but you get damage resistance. That's why I pointed it out. But I would do discipline. You always get damage resistance from just using mana. And the proc also gives you damage resistance. Earth aspect, fantastic. 2 of the abilities from Earth aspect on the armor give you damage resistance. So you can add these 2 together with this and you probably reach the damage resistance limit. I have a almost 40% damage resistance just from my armor, plus the 35% I get from bulwark from just standing still. So that's fantastic. It's super tanky. Let's see. Oh, fire. So parry doesn't really help. Well, it definitely helps with fire because you're super squishy, but I will state that with fire, you have a damage taken reflection. So you have a chance at every damage, every point of damage that you take with fire armor on gets reflected back to the original caster. So as you can see at tier 12, I'm reflecting 230% of the damage back to the mob. So it's a pretty good chunk of damage. Now, the question that you should be asking for this is, does bulwark or shield bash or any of these that reduce the damage, does that reduce the damage that gets calculated before it gets reflected? No. So before any damage gets nerfed from your aspect or your Parry Codex or anything, all of that gets added into this reflection code before you actually reflect it. So once you reflect the damage, then it takes into account all your tankiness. So you will get full reflection damage on top of that. So fantastic. Definitely recommend giving fire a try. But yeah, that has nothing to do with the Parry Codex. It's just a fun one. Holy. So I've tested Holy. I'm only tier 4, so I can't really credit it too much. But my friend Bobby is going for tier 15 Holy, and the guy just doesn't die. He doesn't take damage. He is crazy. He has the Parry Codex, but this is the point that is important. So melee damage and damage resistance per symbol spent every 10 seconds. So what does that mean? That just means since you are probably running 120 with parry and you're gaining parry, or you're holy, yeah, since you're running Shiv, you get a Shiv skill bonus from the armor, which gives you more Shiv points, and then that just means you can spend more spells or more symbols every 10 seconds, so you're spending more and more of these spells, so you're always getting a damage boost. I'm only tier 4, and it's 3.5%, but I'm pretty sure that stacks. It doesn't just, so like if I were to do Divine Fury, it uses 4 symbols to cast that spell. So you do 4 points, so you do 3.5 times 4, which would be 14% damage resistance at tier 4, which is kind of bonkers, but that doesn't mean you only need to cast Divine Fury. You could cast like every spell in here if you have a very high amount of symbols and a very high amount of Shiv. So you could definitely get some crazy damage boost from that. So you are going to be extremely tanky. Void would probably be my only other suggestion for a physically tanky build. So Void increases your effective parrying and magic resist skill bonus. So at tier 10, I have technically 126 parrying if I was at 100. And what does that do? That just increases your stats. So if you go up to player stats and then you go down to melee, up here in the top right gives you all your stats. So I have a 40% chance per hit to parry it, so they do less damage. Yeah, parry damage reduction 75%, physical damage resistance 39.6 right now currently. So it's very, very good. So the higher your parry skill, the more you get in this. And then speaking of Void, the Void bonus also gives you magic resistance. So every melee build that's going to be tanky should probably have magic resistance in it. So not only do you have 126 parry, but you should have 126 magic resistance if you're going to max them out at 100. And what that will do is there is a ability with magic resist called Spell Siphon, where every time you take a hit from a spell, there's a chance that you will absorb the spell and convert that damage into more physical damage for you. So I think it stacks up to 3 times now for 2 minutes straight. So if you're fighting a caster and you have mirror stance on and you're reflecting stuff, that still counts as a hit personally towards you that you can absorb and do more damage output for the next 2 minutes. So definitely recommend Void. It's one of the more expensive melee ones. Out of all the melee that I suggested, I'd probably say Air is probably the most expensive, then Void. But Discipline and Earth, they get looked down on so much. I don't understand it, but they're literally like no higher than 5k per core or anything. Whereas an air core, I think, is probably 20k or something. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've looked at it, but yeah, air and void, very, very nice, but very expensive. So only go those if you can handle it. If you want more of a like tanky build, go holy or earth. And if you want like a hybrid one where you just do tankiness and damage output, discipline is the way to go. Anyway, guys, that is it for now. We are done the weapon codexes. Next, I don't know when I will make this video, but next we will be doing the Thief Codex. Now, I will go over the requirements and the whole Thieves Guild stuff before we get into the Codex. So just keep an eye out for that. I will keep you guys posted so you all know. So everyone, have a good day. Thank you for stopping by. Hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it helped some of you. I don't know if it did, but if you do have any questions, please hit me up. I'm always on Discord. I'm always there to help. Or just send a message in the comments. Anyway, you guys have a good day. I will see you next time.